Okay, so next up we have Blackwing Decent for Feral DPS point of views. Um, this one is going to be a lot longer than Bastion, just because there are more fights that last longer. So I'm going to try and do some cuts here and there just to get through the video a little bit quicker for some of the people that don't want to watch the entire thing. Um, and I'll try and put some timestamps in as well, just so that it's makes it a little bit easier to go to specific spots that you would like to view for later on or for whenever you watch this. All right, starting with Omnitron Defense System. So this fight is a little bit straightforward. You're swapping targets when the next one comes out. So you just want to try and get some of your bleeds up beforehand on some of them, but a lot of them you don't want to keep your bleeds up for too long, because if you destroy the shields or if you keep attacking the shields, then you can mess with the entire group and get them killed. You want to start out with a feral charge, like a lot like I did there. Did my fairy fire hit? No, it does not look like it did. So they've got sunders up, so I'm not too worried about that. And just keeping up with everything. You want to make sure that you are away from the group when you get picked up from Magmatron and you can't move, like I was. I was actually like perfect positioning. A lot of people could just run straight through the boss, and I was away from the range group. But like I said, swapping as soon as the next one comes up, because Magmatron's shield, if you destroy it, it does raid wide damage. Um, but yeah, just straightforward for this. Try and stand in the stuff as much as you can. If your tanks take it to the little portals that are spawned by Canatron, and just keep blasting. Notice how I'm swapping right after, and then we've got the power generator going off, so we're running away from that power generator. Next up, we have Toxitron is the last one for this, but Toxitron's pretty straightforward as well. You don't want to keep attacking it while the shield's up, but you can leave your dots on Electron and Toxitron very easily, just because you need to be doing consistent damage to them, not damage over time, for their shields to actually proc on you. But Toxitron's one of the easier ones. When the Poison Protocol comes out, try and make sure your tank actually keeps them in one spot so that you can really cleave them down. The ads, you want to try and help cleave down as much as possible. The only issue is we get pulled back in right as soon as the cloud comes out. So that's where a lot of groups have the Feral do the first stampeding roar. I didn't have enough energy for it, so I kind of missed out on it, but we got out quickly enough that it didn't really matter. And again, quiet target, so just make sure you're staying away from that and trying to cleave down the ads to help out the group as much as possible if you are lacking in the AoE department for your DPS. But I pretty much just focus single target and then swap targets with Feral Charge as much as I can. Yeah, Feral Charge as much as you can, as long as the targets are far enough away from each other, and just keep going, keep pumping. And it's pretty simple, straightforward fight. Execute phase doesn't really change very much, but yeah, it's pretty easy. All right, next up we have Magma. Magma is a little bit easier to explain. It's pretty straightforward. You can't charge in on this fight, because if you do charge in, you will fall off. So you pretty much just have to run straight up to it. You want to be just attacking from behind the entire time. Using your Berserk at the start of the fight is what I end up doing, because you can have it back up for the second head down. If you only get one head down, then you want to try and save it for that first head, just so you can get a lot more extra damage out. But in a 25-man setting, most of the time I have seen is there's going to be two heads. So I use it right at the start just to get some quick damage out. When the bone constructs come out, I only swap when the raid leader calls for it, but I'm only auto attacking it just because it's going to die super quick anyways, and I want to save most of my energy for Magmaw himself. When there are two of the constructs up and the body is up, not the head, You can use swipe to cleave all three of them, but I still wouldn't recommend that because if you're getting close to the final phase, the ads aren't really going to die, so like you want to focus mainly on Magmaw himself. I'm going to show you one of the down phases here in about 30 seconds or so. And as you can see, there's 3 up now, but I'm just swapping to 1 because there's no point in trying to cleave the other when you have other people that can cleave that other target as well. So yeah, I'm just focusing straight on Magmaw. Mangle came out, so we have 2 people about to come up as soon as the head goes down on the ground, and he slams. Okay, we got 2 people up, and they have already hooked, so this is what an ideal hook looks like. As soon as they are up, they are hooking. Now you can see that there's 2 ads up now, but your main focus is to stay behind the target still in melee range of the body and keeping on the head the whole time. You're not going to cleave here. The cleave does absolutely nothing to the head, and you're doing 100% more damage to the head, so why not just straight focus the head the entire time? So yeah, it's pretty straightforward for this entirety. Depends on what strategy your group does. Our group is kiting the little worms in the back. We have a separate person just doing all the kiting. The hunters are shooting the boss. Now that we have 3 targets up, I should be cleaving because we're going to try and get a second head here in about 40 seconds. So realistically, you want to be cleaving, but Armageddon's going out, so then we're going back to single target. So that's one thing I could try and do better, is do a little bit more cleave on this fight. But I feel like that the single target damage is far higher if I just take him down as fast as possible. Yeah. So we've got the second head about to come out. There are 3 ads, well, 2 ads up now. And so here's where the cleave would come really in handy again, but one of them's about to go down, so single target that one down, and then switch back to the body. Once the final head comes down, hopefully the lust comes out, and as you can see, I've got my berserk up, so I'm going to get my berserk going as soon as the head's down and popping berserk when I'm getting high on energy, and go. There's lust, there's my berserk, there is my berserking from my racial, and I am just pumping on that head, trying to get it below 20% and killing it down as fast as possible. We got about 10 seconds left, and so we want to just keep focusing the boss during this entire time. Ads need to be pulled out instead of getting cleaved down like that one is, so we shouldn't have really swapped. If they get pulled out away from the melee, then we could have done that a lot quicker, but boss is already below 10%, so it's really not going to be that big of a deal. We're just going to kill this real quick. So yeah, pretty straightforward for Magmaw. Let's move on to the next boss. All right, next up we got Atramedes. Atramedes is again a straightforward fight, but what we ended up doing for this specific one is we skipped the other 2 bosses, just went straight to Atramedes so that we can do some heroic pulls on it. So get the Feral Charge in for phase 1, and you want to try and stay away from the boss as much as possible. Try and max range it so that when the solar pulses come out, you can just pretty much sit in one spot if you get lucky. But you want to try and just be away from it. You don't want a Feral Charge when sonar pulses are coming out. You want to do it right after they come out. But you want to be careful when the sonar pulses come out as well, because if they come in your direction, you still get hit by them even if you Feral Charge in. So just be super careful on that factor. You can just be on the safe side and just stay in the boss's hitbox the entire time. We have hunters doing the stuns for the shields during this phase. Then during phase 2, I have opted to do most of the kiting. I believe I die on this boss because of the kiting on the second air phase, but that's okay. As long as you do your job, the boss will go down. I'm more concerned about doing my job than actually parsing on this boss, just because it is a lot of personal responsibility for other people. So if I can help out just by taking some of the responsibility away from some people, then I will. You can see me stunning, or not stunning, but interrupting the obnoxious fiend. That is because I am spec'd into the interrupt. Ideally, I shouldn't be. Ideally, I should just be full send and have some extra healing for the group. But yeah, I hit the gong. I hit my stampeding roar a little bit too early because right now is when I'm actually being tracked. And using my dash, I shouldn't have used my dash just yet. I should have used it when I was further away. But it's should be fine here. This is the next one that I fail, just because dash and stampede roar. I should have used my boots to start it off because if I can get further away, my dash is gonna actually work longer for me. But yeah, that's the whole air phase. You just want to kite it on the outer edge of the room, trying to stay away from the shields as much as possible. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward of a fight. Stay away from sonar pulses, interrupt the obnoxious fiends, and kill the boss. All right, so next up we got Chimaeron. Chimaeron's a little bit of a straightforward fight as well. Opt to stay a little bit back during this entire time just because of the feral charge range. So I can charge and be directly underneath the boss, and I don't have to move during the entirety of the fight. We are two tanking this using a method that I've recently learned from this encounter. So essentially, instead of having three tanks, we're just two tanking it, and we're just going straight ham with as much DPS as we possibly can, front loading it as much as we possibly can as well. We are saving Lust for the final phase, and that's when you want to use your second Berserk as well, if you get lucky enough not to die and your tanks live. But for this fight, again, pretty straightforward. You don't want to move a lot, so you can't really want to. Well, you do really want to feral charge back in, but you don't want to do that very much, just because it can screw you over on this fight specifically, because you can get hit by one of the slimes that come out and possibly kill you and another person next to you. So staying in one spot is the most ideal. When the massacre goes out and feud starts, you want to stack up with the rest of the group and then just basically move straight back into the same position you were. You can try and run out a little bit just so you can feral charge back in, and get that little bit of a extra damage in. But I wouldn't recommend it unless your group is spreading out almost instantaneously and you can get the Savage Roar for the first one, just so you can get some extra damage out. But overall, pretty much a tank and spank fight. If you do end up tanking, then you may want to at least try and go into bear to get a little bit more dodge if you are spec'd into it for this fight. I did go the off tank role for this fight, so if one of the tanks did die and we were in the final phase, I could tank it for at least 10 seconds just to get some other people some extra damage out. But yeah, you can see there the feud was finished, so I have a charge and charged straight back in for this whole thing. And then yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. It's pretty easy and straightforward. All right, so we're on to the second to last fight for BWD, and we're on to Maloriak. What you want to do here is you want to feral charge again. Every fight that you can feral charge in is just going to be a DPS increase. It's free combo points, and so just so you can get your rip up faster as well. Ideally, you want to save your Berserk, unlike what I did here. You want to save it for the swills because the swills do count towards your damage, and if you can sit there and cleave them down and do as much DPS to them as a group as a whole, that is often better than just the single target damage you get from Berserk at this point in time. You do get a little bit of extra time if you do have the glyph of Berserk. If you time it incorrectly, you can get some white damage onto the swills. But what I opt in to do is I'm basically focusing the swills, putting up Feral Fairy Fire on every single one that I possibly can. just because at some points you never know, you might be too far away from the boss to get auto attacks in. So getting those extra auto attacks on the swills and getting your fairy fire up might be a little bit better. But as you can see, I'm missing one swill with feral fairy fire, and it is up, so I've got armor pen on everything, and that's good practice, is just get your fairy fire up on every single one of those swills during the dark phase, and just move and keep moving with the tank, trying to cleave the boss as much as possible. But that's why I say that saving your berserk for this phase would be the most ideal. And so next phase, what I want to try and practice a little bit more is that just what I did there. I need to be out a little bit further so I can feral charge back in, and get that extra ravage out instead of going up to the boss and then going back out. It looks a lot better if I can just go out completely, then feral charge back in, so I have that little bit extra energy to get everything back up. I think it's good, better practice to do it that way. So we end up not kicking any of the aberrations. We're just kicking the swarms or the storms, and we're in blue phase now. Oh no, this is red phase. Sorry. So red phase, you want to be stacked up with the group as much as possible. I am kind of teasing it a little bit. I'm waiting for the cast for Scorching Blast. There it is. And then I'm going right back behind the target because it does have a CD on it. I will try and stack up like ASAP as soon as it's, and keep going on the back of the boss as much as possible. It's very easy to get into this Scorching Blast, get a little bit extra energy out so you can do a couple of shreds. You're not really losing that much DPS by doing it this way. I think personally, it's an overall gain because if you can soak a little bit just to keep people alive, that's better. If you can get away with being behind the target the entire time, that's obviously better. But most raid leaders are going to tell you no, that you need to be in front of the target with everybody else just so you can help soak some of the damage until people get more gear. Again, depends on your group, depends on your raid leader's call. So blue phase, you want to try and spread out from other people as much as possible just in case you do get the biting chill like I did. I'm going to move out and try and position myself right next to the boss so I can at least get some melee attacks in during that biting chill. And here's green phase. So I saved my second berserk for green phase. Why? Because I can just sit here and swipe away, and my damage is just going to go up, 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 up. You want to try and kill as many as you can, and killing the last ones is ideal. As soon as it gets pulled back, you feral charge. Again, great practice. It's a lot of these fights are just going to want to feral charge everywhere you possibly can. The timing didn't really line up for my Tiger's Fury to get into green phase, but yeah. So I do end up tanking these prime subjects along with the other guy, just so that like if I get hit, it's fine. If he gets hit, it doesn't matter. But yeah. So next we're gonna move on to Nef, and Nef is a little bit of a difficult fight for some people. A lot of pugs struggle on this fight. Most people tend to just straight Zerg Oni, and for the final phase, because most people are only 2-tanking this, we end up 2-tanking this, so we're gonna go straight and Zerg the freak out of Oni as much as we possibly can. Some of us do end up swapping to Nef for at least a little bit, and then Oni dies and Nef goes up in the air. I believe the call was made just to Zerg Oni down anyways, but here comes Nef, and the turning is just so bad. You need to make sure your tanks are actually turning in the right direction, trying to avoid the tail swipe as much as possible at the right times. It was a little bit of a miscall by one of our tanks, but yeah, I believe we popped Army to deal with those ads. But yeah, I feral charge over just to get some extra damage out on Nef. Any extra damage I can do is I'm gonna try and cheese it around and do that every time. But on these ads, you want to try and help with the interrupts as much as possible. If you have enough people that can't interrupt on your side, you should only need maybe 1, 2 people on each of the platforms to get all the interrupts. So if you can get away with not doing any interrupts, that's actually perfect. So you can save your energy and just kind of kill these ads as fast as possible. The faster these ads die, the quicker you can get onto Nef and get into the real juicy stuff. This phase is just pretty straightforward. There's nothing too much to worry about specifically here. But for Nef, avoiding tail swipes, avoiding the breath, if the other tank dies, I do end up going out and trying to get the ads off of healers, off of DPS, doing what I can to ensure the kill for the group. It's a hard fight. Even on normal, it's a hard fight for some groups. But this is, like, as you can see, like, the things are just going to come out really super quick. Here comes first crackle, because we're just barely hitting 90% because we're deciding to shoot tank and just destroy Oni. Ads should be spawning here soon. This isn't the best positioning for Nef because ads are right there in the middle. So we're going to get a lot of fires around us, and they're just going to spread and spread and spread. Ideally, I would tank him at the wall so that his frontal breath is away from the ads. But that's just me. The DK is tanking the ads along with a Holy Paladin next to him just for Holy Wrath, so that he can get a Holy Wrath out and stun them. But it's not too bad of a fight. It's pretty straightforward. So we're just going to cut this down and go with it. Yeah, you can see that there's one ad in the group, and that's fine. As long as the ad's like kind of swapping around, it's fine. What you could also do is if the ad tank does die, so you can call for Earth Allies armies just to taunt the ads away and keep them off of the group so you can do as much DPS as possible. Earth Allies are really good. Army of the Dead's really good as well. Anything you can do to prolong your tank from dying or prolong your healers from dying. But yeah, that concludes BWD, going over most of the heroics other than Nef. Nef on heroic doesn't really change very much from what I understand of it. It's just a lot more damage going out on the entire raid, so it's a lot more healer coordination and a little bit more coordination from the tanks, because those ads will live for a lot longer. If you liked it, go ahead and leave a like, leave a comment. If you didn't like something on here, if you think that there is something that I could change, then I can try and come back and edit it and make some changes. Thanks, guys.